Hello, content creators. Christopher here for another episode of Backyard Indies. And I am joined today, and I'm very excited about this, the creators of Crawl or Die, Nicole Alonso and Oklahoma Ward. You guys, thank you so much for being on the show. I'm really excited to have you here. How you doing?
Great.
We're good. Thank you for having us. We're
Yeah.
happy to be here.
Well, I'm really excited because Crawl or Die, I think it's fair to say, as far as independent films go, was a pretty big hit for you guys. You did really well with it. It utilized a lot of filmmaking techniques to do a lot on a minimal budget and make it look like it was a big budget movie. And also, I have to say, you guys have this great engagement with your fans in terms of bringing them into the process. So, you know, a lot of people are cheering for you. It's like, was Crawl or Die the first film that you guys did together? Or was it,
No.
do you guys do short films? How did you guys start? How did you guys get to the point of what Crawl or Die turned into?
No, not my first. I've done 3 movies before this, all same budget, between $3,000 and $5,000. But I never approach it as it's a $3,000 or $5,000 project. I just approach it as that's the budget I have. I still want to make this movie. Now, how, as an artist or a creator, can I make this movie with what's available? And for me, that's always challenging and exciting. And I just haven't known any difference ever. And so I would just go out and make it. And we would come to something that I would think would be a big special effect. And I would say, all right, well, how are we going to make this work? And we'd all sit around and figure out how to make it work instead of going, well, we could have this explosion, but it would cost $50,000. So let's hire someone.
Now,
No, the first movie I made never released. I like it. I still think it's great. It's just something that I made, I think, for myself, just to see if I could do it. And I decided, this is where it gets crazy. I decided some years down the road, after I made something that I had a larger audience, I would then release it. I didn't want to release it and have about 20 people view it. You know, I always get confused when people say I make stuff and I don't care about the audience, and I'm like, well, then you're the luckiest person in the world, because you can make something and watch it at home all day long. You can do that. But if you want an audience, which is, you know, not gonna lie, we want people to see our stuff and interact with our stuff. And so we learned very early on, probably 10 years ago, we were going to have to work twice as hard to gain an audience than it does to make the movie. And that, to this day, is the truth. If you don't have a lot of money and a PR team to go out and do that work for you, then you've got to do it on your own.
Now, this is something that really I tell to the audience on my YouTube channel all the time. It's my philosophy that the art isn't complete until you have your audience watch it, because there's a transition in the audience's mind between what your intention was and how they relate to it, and that's really what completes it. And it really seems to me like you guys kind of approach filmmaking on 2 levels. You approach it creatively, and you approach it with a plan of attack for that audience, a business plan in mind. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I'll let Nikki talk here for a minute or two, because I always think of what Peter Broderick told us each time that we complained as independent filmmakers about where we were. And
Basically, that is fair to say. We definitely, when we did Crawl or Die, and we worked with Peter Broderick, who is our distribution consultant, when we got to the point of having to find our audience, we didn't realize it was literally just as much work as making the movie. And we would ask him, we'd be like, so how are we supposed to find an audience? And he was like, figure it out, basically. Like, just like you figure out as independent filmmakers how to get your movie made, go out there and figure out how to find your audience. And so it just became I guess it was almost a year-long process of us hustling online and through, doing test screenings and all different avenues. And we figured it out. And it's just as much work, and it's like a full-time job just to find your audience and engage with them and get them to know about you. But that's also how we ended up getting our distribution deal, through word of mouth, and these companies saw everyone talking about us on Twitter and online, and they came to us. They were like, who is this Crawl or Die? We've never heard of them before, and all these people are talking about us. We were trending on Twitter at one point, like above, what was it?
We'll have to paraphrase this because we'd have to go back to look at, but it is, you can find it on Twitter. The weekend that, I can't remember which Avengers movie came out, but it was
I believe you're talking about Guardians of the Galaxy. Wasn't it Guardians of the Galaxy you guys trended over?
It was something like that. It was one of those
something in that universe
movies.
Yeah, and it's that thing that I laugh about when I talk to people is this: when you're doing a film, that becomes your world, and everything else is just kind of on the peripheral. So details of some things that happen in the world were a little like murky on. But yeah, it was in that universe. It may have been Guardians of the Galaxy, but it was definitely one of those tentpole great movies that we love as fans.
Yeah.
And we, for the same weekend that they came out, we had worked so hard knowing that we were going to the UK in about a month, engaging, reaching out, finding every single, I don't care if it was John sitting in his basement, if he had a podcast or a blog that had 2 people, we would take an hour and interact with them, promote them on Twitter, and I think a lot of those people that we engaged with figured we were just like everybody else. Everybody else would, for like a week, promote them, and then when you got on and got an interview with them, they never heard from you again. But we didn't do that. We engaged early on with everybody, promoted everybody. But I'm not kidding you. It was a 2-hour job every single morning. She would get up, I would get up, and we would sit down and we would try to thank every single person, anybody that mentioned us. We would have our fans go and interact with them. And it is a job, and it is a job that we had to do every single day. But the payoff was, we in fact, the Crawl or Die hashtag, Twitter started shutting down the Crawl or Die hashtag because there were so many people tweeting about us having our premiere at the UK and it being available, that they weren't sure, and 1 hour later they kicked us back on, and we were out trending
whatever it was,
that movie, that Marvel's movie. And what the greatest thing about that, the payoff to all the hard work was, I think sometimes independent filmmakers or content creators don't fully acknowledge, is there is a reason that Hollywood movies, even with A-list stars, spend millions and millions and millions of dollars advertising. And so how do you compete with that? It's almost an impossible task, but it is possible. It just takes a lot of work. And so we are proud of it. It's not fun. There are days that, I'm filming and I'm working with everything else that needs to be done. I'm trying to get an actor, help them get what they're doing, and they're breaking down because they feel horrible. And then you're like, okay, now I got to go up there and for an hour engage an audience. And they don't want you to go on there and be an ass because you're tired and all that. They're hyped to talk to you, so you got to build yourself back up and do that. So it is, I say it all the time, it's, at our position, it's more work than making the content. But the payoff is you have an audience. You have somebody who will scream that they hate your movie, or they'll scream that they love your movie. And that's what you want in the end.
And in my mind, payoff is extremely rewarding as well. Even though it is hard work and everything, we've met some of the best fans and the best people that have supported us, and they still support us. They'll post every time we post anything, they're reposting it and liking it and sending love and support. And it at least for me, I know it gets me through some of the days when you're stressing out or tough, and you go on there and they're like, "We're rooting for you," and it just makes it.
We have women in Japan that are so engaged with Nicole and her character that they make her things, they send her things, you know, that the character helped them be stronger in their life. And yeah, it's just as great as a payoff as people loving the movie.
Yeah.
I'm really glad to hear you guys say this because, first of all, one of the big mistakes I see people make is, if they have, you know, even a slightly bad interaction with somebody on Twitter, for example, they'll just go off and, you know, it turns into a real negative experience. And I'm always kind of just like mentally cringing, going, why would you, you know, it's like this person could be on your side, even, you know, even if they're saying something negative, you know, you could turn that around for them. I mean, it was my friend.
And we did that too. We would take the route of just killing them with kindness and just saying something like, "Well, listen, I'm sorry you didn't like it, but we appreciate you taking the time to watch it. Hope you'll check out the sequel." Then all of a sudden they're like, "Well, I mean, you know, it wasn't that bad," and then they feel bad. You know, and I'm like, all right.
Well, and I think you bring up a good point, especially in today's world with everything going on. Look, you know, first of all, I've never understood this. I make a product and I put it out there. When I do that, I know and I'm okay with going, there is going to be an amount of people that are infuriated by it, hate it, and that's their right. I mean, I do not understand, and I see content creators do this. Now, unless your gig is to be confrontational, and that's a ways I see some people get popular because people like to see a good fight. I mean, they just do. But for us, it really is about we want to make a movie and put it out there and do the best job that we can. And we love what we're doing. We know the limitations. I mean, you know, at the end of the day, we had $5,000. And so, of course, I know that people are going to, you know, gripe about this, or maybe this wasn't the best, but we like it. So if somebody engages with us and they're like, I hated this movie, you know, I just go, well, first of all, I appreciate you taking the time to watch it, because that's amazing in the first place. There's a million things out there you can watch, and somehow you took the time to watch what I created. And second of all, hey, I hear your points. You're right. I mean, you know, that was the best I could do. I hope you watch the sequel. And I don't even mean it sarcastically. Now, there are times that people get really rude and say things that, you know, I feel is over the line, attack an actor's body, or, you know, some sort of thing. And I just go, what, you know, their opinion. What do I care? I'm not going to engage with it. I'm too busy. It is what it is. And I just find that it creates a lot better atmosphere. It just does. I'd rather talk to the people that are being positive. And, you know, I'm not going to change somebody online. Yeah, it's not going to happen. Somebody hates the movie, they hate the movie.
Yeah.
I mean, look, I think, and I want to say this, I know I'm going to qualify. This is what social media has taught me, that I feel like I need to qualify this. I think Daniel Day-Lewis is one of the greatest actors ever. And I'll give you an example, and this is what I tell young filmmakers when I'm talking to them. I can put that out there, and at the same time, there was a guy who commented that he's the worst actor ever, and he's wrote in a blog like 12 paragraphs on why anybody that thinks he's a good actor is an idiot and all this kind of stuff. I mean, you know, so what are you going to do? You just got to get used to that there are just people that aren't going to agree with you, and they're going to be mad about it, and you just go, all right, well, I don't need to argue with you. I don't want to change your point of view, and you're not going to change mine, so there we go.
Yeah, I think it's almost, well, it is in a way. It's customer service. You give them enough of a fair hearing, and in the case of my friend Bill Oberst Jr., who's an actor, he has a very similar approach, and he told me something that I thought was great. If it was a bad critic review, he would write them and thank them, and say pretty much what you said. I hear your points, and his comment was usually something to the effect of, like, I know you didn't enjoy this performance, but I hope you give me another chance.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And most of the time they're, oh yeah, definitely, and then there's someone who's ready to watch the next thing, even though they didn't like the first one.
Right.
But I think I really like hearing about you guys essentially saying what again, this is something I press very heavily on my channel right now in terms of content creation, and I do tend to talk about content creation as opposed to just saying filmmaking, because now, especially with theaters kind of suffering the hit of being in a post-COVID environment, people have moved over to video on demand who they knew about it, but they never really gave it the time. And now video on demand has a whole new set of eyeballs that never really explored it before. And I think it's evolving the medium. And I made a whole video on this, but I think it's evolving in the medium into something that's going to be a hybrid between movies and series. And we're going to see new storytelling opportunities that we've never seen in either one of the individual mediums, but together in the video on demand platform. Because we're not just competing anymore for people's eyeballs in terms of, like, I've got a movie, other people have movies. It's now people turn on video on demand. It's like, I can watch this movie, I can watch this television series, I can watch this person unpackaging products, I can take yoga from this person. It's all the landscape of options that people have. So I figure we're evolving in this, but the big thing that I preface to anybody that's looking to get into content creation is what you're talking about, is audience engagement, which you guys do, not just in terms of engaging the fans and doing the podcast, but you guys actually, while you're making, because you guys are working on the next Tank movie. I don't want to call it Crawl or Die 2 unless she gets into another underground situation specifically. I imagine you guys, there's a whole universe of that Tank exists in to explore. But I'm just spitballing. I have no idea what your sequel is going to be. But
no, that's good.
But it's you guys actually are live streaming from your set, showing people around. You're like Nicole, you're in costume, telling people what you're doing, and inviting people into that environment, which I just think is wonderful. And it must have worked for you the first time, because you did do it the first time, and now you're doing it again, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I agree with everything you said. To me, it's kind of like, you're right, there is a major shift. It just like when the shift went from all of a sudden you can only see movies in a movie theater to you can see them on VHS. That was a major shift. And then you have the major shift from Blockbuster, which we all thought would be around forever, because we couldn't see the shift of everything moving online. And then what did that mean for, you're right, it is content creation in this respect. And I think this might be kind of important. You're right in that now we have to make the posters, we have to make the teasers, we have to make the music, we have to do all that. So we're not just making a film, and we're actually, in a sense, this is going to sound a little out there, but to me, it's kind of like you're the president of your NBC. Like, you have to have a channel or a page or a destination that people can go, because once you make the film, what are you going to engage with then? Like, people want to be involved kind of in your life. What are you doing? What are you doing on these 6 months now that it's out? And you're like, well, how many times can I show them a picture of me typing a screenplay out? It gets kind of boring. But then what you can do is you start engaging with them on other things that you're thinking about and talking to them. It's just really come down to exactly what you're talking about, a truthful engagement. Now, to me, the difference is this. That's our world. There is still a Hollywood world out there, and they don't care about any of that. What they care about is do you have something that I can sell and make money on? And when it comes down to the end of it, even the people that bought our movie the first time never really watched the movie all the way through. What they did was, what they were buying in their mind is, we have an audience, we have all of our fans will buy the movie, they will make some money, and they don't have to spend any money on advertisement. And so we were viable quickly because they don't have to pay their team to promote us. So we got pushed up higher. Do I see a time when, and I think it's happening pretty quick, that people like Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, they approached it differently. They would engage with people like us because they go, we already have 700 million people that will watch whatever we put out there. We have the audience. We don't have to go out and promote to have people watch something. Now we need to find people who have their stuff together. Do you have a completed film? Is it color corrected right? Are we going to have to spend any money to make it look good if we put it on our platform? And again, that's where Nicole and I, because we're workaholics, we make sure that when we're ready to approach those people, we have the full package and every format they need. They don't have to spend any money on it. They can literally buy it and put it on their platform, and it's exactly the way it should be. So if we decided we didn't want to go with any of those platforms and just make money off of a channel that we created, that again is a whole lot of work, as I'm sure that you know. How do you make money? And if you are going to take money from people, you have to give them content a lot. You know, I mean, and that's a job. And it's you know, it's a fascinating world. It's going to be interesting where everything pans out.
It is interesting in terms of what I find so interesting is like the world of video on demand is in constant need of content because
Absolutely.
Their goal is to keep people streaming as much as possible. One of the things that I've found interesting is now it's changed. One of the ways it's changing the medium is in terms of you know, they're no longer beholden to a certain you know, a movie doesn't have to be 90 minutes because they're not making it worth, they don't feel they have to give enough time to make it worth the price of admission, nor does it have to fit into a television time slot. So you're getting things, I've even noticed Disney Plus and Netflix does this as well. Disney Plus puts out like 4-minute short films for The Simpsons. Yep. So if you're on a break, you know, and you only have time to watch 4 minutes worth of something, well, they want that. They want you to be streaming that, so they'll give you something 4 minutes long. Or Netflix, for example, they got David Lynch's newest film, yep, which was 17 minutes long, and it was wonderful. And it didn't, you know, if they tried to stretch out that movie to an hour or 90 minutes like a regular movie, it wouldn't have worked. And that's kind of how the medium is evolving. You had mentioned before in one of your live streams about like packaging for video on demand yes, companies like Netflix, and you said that there's actually a place you can go and get those specific specs and make sure that you're meeting them all ahead of time, because of course there's sure, conversion companies, but those can cost a lot of money too. So are you finding that getting it all lined up, all your ducks in a row that way, has that been a pretty straightforward experience, or have you really had to kind of bend over backwards to find that information and meet those criteria?
No, it's I think we learned this on the last movie. You know, the second movie I made, I learned a lot, and one of the main things I learned is after you do everything that you do to create something, then you have to decide what do you want to do with it. And I decided, well, you know, I'd like to sell it. I'd like to see if I could get it out there to we can say platform, but at that time, I'm talking about, you know, Hollywood, the studio system, because they will go after the audience. And so we decided, well, we don't know that world, so we hired a distribution consultant named Peter Broderick. Great guy. And the first thing he told us was, listen, there are things that you don't have any idea about. The movie has to be QC'd, which a minimum was $30,000 at the time. And then there's going to be a lot of problems, and you're going to have to fix those problems. And if you don't fix the problems, then the studio is going to have to fix those problems. And then that's going to be more money. And before you know it, you're giving your movie to them for free. And you go, well, maybe then at least I'll have an audience. So what we learned is, since we didn't have the money to do those things, we had to learn how to do it all ourselves. And it took us a long time. But we did it. It was a lot of work. I even learned how to, there's a thing called DCP so that you can show something in a movie theater. Usually you have to send that to a company. That's about $50,000 to do. I got online and I found some geeks, and I found a site where all these people were putting together a program themselves to learn how to do it. I went in there, worked with them. I donated $100 to them. They gave me the program. I was able to DCP mine right here on this iMac. Took it right into the AMC theater, plugged it in, looked beautiful.
Wow.
So once you learn everything that needs to be done, then when I was getting ready to do this one, I went, okay, well, this isn't going to be shown in the theater. What's going to be shown on? It's going to be shown on one of those platforms. Okay, what are their requirements? What do they want? Amazon will take, they'll take something on the phone. I've watched movies that literally, they're so bad color corrected that they block out, they square out. But all the other platforms, they like to put out something that looks really good. So we did what we do as a team. We sat down and Netflix has 12 pages. What do they want? If they were making a movie, or they're backing a movie, it has to be under these requirements. So we looked through them and we went, well, hell, we can do all those. Went over to Hulu, looked up what HBO Max wants, and then we went, well, hell, everything that they want is very easy for us to do.
Was it pretty consistent through the platforms, or did you have to create different files for each submission?
No, they're all very similar. Now, Netflix being the big dog right now, they have a higher requirement. I would not have been able to do that one based on one of their requirements was they have a specific requirement on even their cameras. And every camera they had, I would never be able to afford, and I would have to buy. I couldn't rent because of how long it takes us to do these projects. So I was like, well, I'll do the best I can. I'll still submit it to them, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. But right before I started to they accepted in one of their cameras that S1H, the Panasonic. Well, hell, that's a $4,000 camera. I can sell some stuff and buy that. And now everything else is just, I'm sure you know it. It's codecs. It's making sure that it's done in surround, but they also want files for stereo. They want to make sure that the sound is without any speaking, and so that they can take it out if they want to put it over in Japan, and they can just have somebody voice over the lines. And all that stuff's really easy to do. Only because we've done it before, all of it on our own. We did all the sound. We hired someone to teach us how to sound level. Nikki wrote all the music and did all the music. So there's no aspect that once we reach this point of going, hey, if you can do all this, we'll buy it from you just like we would Hollywood. This is what we expect. If Sandra Bullock's doing a movie, it has to be under these requirements. And had we not learned how to do all that, we wouldn't be there.
So a question about going back to the program. You said you donated $100 to get it theater ready. Was that an open source project?
Yes.
See, this is another thing that I find fascinating now, which is really leveling the playing field for filmmakers like you and I, where, Blender is open source,
Yep.
Unreal Engine, which they're using for The Mandalorian, is open source. You can do
Yep.
photo scanning now, where it used to be laser scanning for objects to create 3D objects. And of course, there's the typical, compositing, practical effects stuff as well.
Sure.
It seems like the world of open source programs is essentially a revolution in leveling the playing field between filmmakers like yourself and the Hollywood big dogs. And of course, they still have tons of money to throw at special effects and that sort of thing. But there's no reason now why you can't create environments or all this great
There's
stuff.
only one reason. There's only one reason, especially in today. There's only one reason. How much work are you willing to do, and how much work are you not willing to do? If you want to do it, you're absolutely right. In today's world right now, there is you could make anything you wanted to make. You literally could. It might take you 15 years to do it, but I mean, you're right. I mean, any special effect you want, you could go out there. Now, we understand that here, but we also go, okay, we don't have 5 years of our life because, we have to pay house bills and electric and all that. But we can take a year off of our life and, okay, could I make a special effect ship going through space and seeing it explode? I could. Might take me 6 months to do that. Might be painstaking. I could. So I make those decisions. I go, well, do I need to? Could I film that a different way and have the same feeling and have the story go forward? And do I need to see it? I mean, we've all seen it now 1,000 times. We've seen a ship going through space and exploding. So it's not really that interesting. But can I do it a different way that's maybe faster and more engaging because it's different? And so you always have to make those choices. But I think you're right. I mean, there's no reason. I think we're a prime example. We made this in a garage. We made Crawl or Die in our garage. And we got international distribution, which is insane. And I know people right now, friends of mine, that have. I'm not going to be self-deprecating here, but I mean, I would say that a couple of them they have a better movie than we had, and just went nowhere. And it comes back to the thing that we started off about. It was the engagement. It literally was the buyers went, holy hell, what's going on over here? We better catch hold of this in case this is something crazy good, because literally there's 100,000 people collectively on all different platforms every single day talking about this movie. What the hell is going on? And we better get it just in case we don't want to miss out on something. And so it brings us full circle to what we were talking about. It's the engagement.
Well, also, the quality of what you guys did for the movie itself was, I rewatched the movie last night to prepare for this interview, and I really kind of was able to, since I'd seen it before, kind of look at it through the lens
Sure.
of deconstructing how you guys got the results you got. And on your budget, there's some things I look at and go, oh man, I got to ask them exactly how they pulled that off. Other things I looked at and I went one of the things that I kind of smiled at, and you would never notice in a million years as a general audience goer, but when the characters open the hatch to drop down into the tunnels, I said to myself, I bet that hole is only like a foot deep. And because you guys kind of, you see the jumping down, and as soon as you start going down that hole, you cut to the other angle under the tunnels. And having made a film in my garage myself, I assume the sets you created were minimalistic, and you took advantage of the fact that it was very dark in the
Yes,
in the setting.
absolutely.
And you guys
Yep.
are also, if I recall correctly, you also have made your living as house flippers. Um, am I getting that right? Is that correct?
Yes.
Because I noticed that in one of the settings that the characters were in the kind of the mission flashback, there was a lot of scaffolding
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
I figured you guys probably looked at that scaffolding while you were flipping a house and went, well, we can use this. I'm pure speculation, but
No, absolutely. I mean, you again, that's what I'm saying, and then I'll let Nicole talk about it a little bit because you're right, absolutely right. I mean, you and I could probably sit down and spend an afternoon and kind of laugh and go, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense. That's how that worked and all that. That is part of the movie magic thing. You've got to be smart. You've got to figure out how can I make this work? But we would look around and we would be like, there was, and I'll let Nikki talk about this, there was a section of the movie that was real tunnels. There was a section of the movie that was, well, how do you make a tunnel out of dirt? And so, you go, well, here's concrete forms, and you actually literally have to go in there and hand glue, sawed in upside down, painstaking, difficult, but the result is like, man, that looks fantastic. I haven't seen this before in a movie, not like this. So that's interesting. So let's use this. So you look around and you use what's available. Now, because we are independent and because we are crazy, I did stick her in a real tunnel for a while, and she did get stuck once.
I was going to ask about that.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean,
well, okay. Yeah. So first, I just want to say though, you said we could spend an afternoon and laugh about it. I want to just kind of add to that to anyone listening. The laughter wouldn't be this is a joke. The laughter would be out of delight at the results you can get from this, because that's the great thing about movie magic is it's all this stuff that seems silly at the time. And I had this own experience shooting my own movie where the actors are like, what the heck why are we doing this? And then when they saw the result, they were like, wow, okay, now I see why I was doing that. And that was so cool. So Nicole, for you, first of all, like, was this movie kind of born out of, we have these resources and we can write a movie around this? Or did Oklahoma just say like, hey, I'd really love to just half bury you in dirt and have you crawl through that?
Well, I see that for every single day. I like to bury her in dirt.
Enjoyed that quite a bit, but no, he actually was the one that came up with the entire concept and the idea and wrote the script and all that. So I can't take any credit there on that part of it, but I definitely was delighted to read the script and take on that challenge with him, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of hard work.
Well, originally I didn't even know that you wanted tank. I gave you the option to be either character.
He told me I could play tank or I could play package, and he was like, well, if you play tank, you have to shave your head to a mohawk, which at the time I had long black hair down to my butt, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll do it because I'm crazy, but. Yeah, but it was great. It was a lot of fun, and while I will say that I don't ever feel I was actually in danger, there was one time where the tunnel was real and it was so small that I did get stuck for a minute, and I luckily I'm not claustrophobic, so I just basically had to sit there and breathe for a minute and talk to myself, and then wedge myself out. It's just that I had tried to turn around, and my shoulders were too wide for that to happen, and I got wedged in there. So,
I think your biggest fear was actually tarantulas or scorpions.
Yeah, I don't like bugs. So, although after the last movie and after the filming of this movie, I've gotten way less. I'm way desensitized to that now. I found a giant tarantula in our building the other day, and I had my friend come scoop it out with a shovel. And before, I think I would have just fainted and had like right on the spot been like, I'm leaving. I'm not staying here. Yeah, I'm getting way better about that, and I'll just dive into the dirt, and I'm like, well, if there's one in there, I'll just, I'll brush it away or something. I don't know, but
yeah, you get it in the shot and use it essentially.
exactly. I hope the camera's on because I might, freak out. But
Well, that you can always hold your composure for as long as possible, and then just in editing cut away. Like, yeah, the very next frame, you can see your face contort in fear. But no, I mean the movie, the sense of claustrophobia as you go through the movie, the spaces just get tighter and tighter and tighter until you pretty much go like, okay, the next scene is either you come out in some open area or you die.
right.
But it was very interesting. I figured the relationship you guys have must be one of extreme trust if you're literally, I mean, you're digging your way through dirt, making it look like you're deep underground.
Yes.
And I don't want to, I'm not going to ask for spoilers on the sequel. But I am, you mentioned, or it kind of sounded there like you've completed shooting of the second installment. Have you guys finished that?
No, we're right in the middle. Here's the things that I can share slightly is we're doing let's see, how can I legally say this? Just a movie is usually an hour long. We're having to create a story that is 6 hours long that will probably be shown not all at one time.
In parts.
Right.
Well, there you go. This is going into. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say this is going into what we were talking about before with the VOD changing the landscape of how stories are presented, which I think is really exciting. So it doesn't sound any illegal there. I assume you say legally because you probably have some prearranged.
I'm in negotiations.
Negotiations.
I'm in negotiations. So I can't do anything that would upset or rock that boat too much. I can say this: what inspired me to get back into it, because I had already decided I didn't want to make another traditional movie, because while I will always go, if we have movie theaters ever again, I'll always go to movies to see big tentpole movies. But why I used to love to go to movies is find those little independent gems. That you're not going to do that in theaters anymore. Where I find that is online. I loved when Martin Scorsese came out with the extra long movie. I like movies that are I like series. I like them. I think that Homecoming came out. Not my favorite series, but what I loved about it is I think one was 30 minutes, one was 15 minutes, one was an hour and a half long. I was like, man, this is great. And so I decided
they're exactly the length they need to be. Yeah. Sorry.
Well, I just went, why am I constraining you? You don't have to work within that parameter. You had to work in it because that's how they could package it and sell it. That even Quentin Tarantino ran into that. Him and Rodriguez. Even they weren't able. They wanted to put that out as one movie, and even they, with all of their prestige, couldn't convince the studios to do that. So, but now we can. Now, if I want to make the first episode 17 minutes long and the next one 2 hours and the next one 30, I can do that. And I remember waking up going, now I'm re-energized. Like, I want to tell the story the way I want to tell it. And frankly, who's telling me no? The only person telling me I can't do this is what I've been learned for so long, that you have to work. The script has to be, 120 pages. Can't go over that. You have to leave enough for the trailer, and you have to have your action point start here in the first 5 minutes. You better engage everybody. And I'm like, hey, you don't have to do that anymore. Now it's if you create something and it's good, you have platforms to put it on, and you'll have an audience that's already there. And that excites me. Yeah,
I've found some people. I'm very excited about this, and to quote Thanos, it's inevitable. It's not something that is when I talk about this sometimes in different forums, I kind of get met with hostility, mainly on Reddit. A little bit of pushback on Stage 32, but they're for the most part pretty good. But I get the "you don't know what you're talking about. Movie theaters aren't going away." I'm like, well, they're not going away, but they are going to evolve into something else because of
Absolutely.
this inevitable transformation.
Blockbuster wouldn't sign a deal. I think it was Netflix wanting to sign a deal with them before they were Netflix, saying we want to take you online and start doing all this. And Blockbuster was like, no way.
They were like,
and they
who's
didn't
gonna
see it coming,
right?
and now they're gone.
Look, it's like everything. It's film to digital. When CDs came along, everybody said about vinyl. Look, you're right. I mean, that's why I don't even get into those arguments, because I go, well, you can fight this change all you want. It's here. It's happening. Netflix is a more profitable studio than anybody else out there. And of course, that's why all the stars are rushing there. They get more creative freedom. It's just it's going to happen. Now, I hope theaters don't ever completely go away. But why in the world is a studio going to go, I have to pay for the movie theater, we've got employees, we've got an insurance, or I can put it online and have twice the audience, and it's just pure profit. It's going to happen. It's just going to happen.
And my brain keeps kind of going back what you said before about having fans in Japan. Who are, I mean, that's not only is that a big deal just from a business perspective, but I find that kind of touching.
Me too.
The idea of this character that Nicole inhabits, and she's very stylish. That's one thing that I like about Tank is she's very, you may think a special ops team, why would they be a mohawk with these high buckle boots and that sort of thing, but at the same time I'm like, I love it because it's so unapologetically stylish.
Exactly.
Who wants to get, it's like if you just put Nicole in the normal whatever a special ops gear is supposed to be, like she becomes kind of homogenized, which is what military operations want their people to be, but in the context of creating a character that you want to continue on with in the way that you're talking about, to create something stylish, and some people are going to question the logic of it or even poke fun at it, but ultimately
it is stylish, but I don't feel that it's like that type of stylish that's ridiculous. Like I'm not running around in 6-inch platform boots, high heels or something. Like they're very, I feel like it was very still industrial looking and like for function. It was
the perfect balance and I always tell people there's a sliding scale between story logic and style, and you can be anywhere on that scale as long as you're consistent. I think it's the inconsistency that sometimes kind of turns audiences off, but it's like I'm looking at the Crawl or Die poster on IMDb right now. You're in the claustrophobic space, you're aiming the gun, your mohawk's on point, you got the cool bloody spot on your cheek. It's like it's and I can especially it's like I follow manga and anime and in Japan it's there's so much style, and it's not people like to say style over substance, but it's not. There's a lot of substance there as well, and the fact that people in Japan gravitated towards and hooked into your character, I just think that's awesome. Yeah, it makes sense, but it's also, like I said, these characters matter to people. Any audience that you gain, if they become invested in that character, and if you do something kind of out of left field to disrupt that character, or you I've seen, this is the big complaint people have about the most recent Star Wars movies, is that you took established characters it wasn't so much that they didn't like where the plot went. It was that the characters didn't behave like the characters that they knew.
Were set up.
And
That's right.
and so and people go, what's the big deal? It's just a movie about space wizards. I'm like, no, you're missing the entire point. This matters to these people.
Right.
That's not to be scoffed at. So anyway, so Nicole, the fact that you've become this character that people seem to really care about, I just think that's incredible, and I'm very happy for you as an actress as well to be playing this character.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely extremely humbling experience because, of course, I want to be an actor and became an actor because I want people to see my work and hopefully connect with it in some way. But, you never know how people are going to respond until it's out there and you see the response. So I had hoped, of course, that they were going to like Tank, and I put everything into Tank, and she means a lot to me personally, and I know to Oak because he wrote her, obviously. But to get that response and that many people connecting and the heartfelt stories that they would write me about how much this character affected their life personally, and the artwork that they would send of her and things. And to this day, I still get people writing me about her. New people discover the movie all the time, and men and women, which was also a cool experience. Like, it wasn't just women. I would get men that were like, Tank is inspiring to me. She's so strong. All this stuff, and it was just very humbling. And it was like, it was shocking and humbling.
You got fan art? That's awesome. Sorry.
Speaking of Japan and like anime and stuff, we got a ton of artists in Japan that drew Tank in all different styles, which was the craziest thing ever. So like there were some that were kind of lewd a little bit, and I was like, this is crazy. Like, you know how Japan can be, where they have that cool art that's like kind of lewd. And we got all different styles, and it was amazing. It was amazing.
I think the one thing, you're absolutely right. Look, I know that. I mean, there's no special ops person that's going to be out there with a mohawk. At the same time, I grew up with Snake Plissken. I grew up with Mad Max, and so. Well, what I tell all these people is we can have this mythical world and we can have these mythical characters that are fun, but I always tell them, and I know she gets tired of me saying this, but every time before we start filming I tell everybody, you play this real. That's how you make this work. If you go in there and you're like, this is campy and we're over the top, it's a whole different type of movie. You play this real. These are real things happening. You're a real character. Yes, you wouldn't be here with those type of boots. They're heavy. It doesn't matter. As long as this is based in reality, we're going to toe that line and put it out there, and it will work.
And also back to what he said about how people, once they like a character and they expect that character to act a certain way or be who that character is.
And we refer back to that all the time.
Yeah, during this time shooting. That's
right.
Well, I'll do a take, and Oak will be like, that's not how Tank would say that. And I'm like, you're right. And then I'm like, let me get into the scene. And then I realized, of course, she would never say it like that. She's Tank. This is how she'd say it. And it's just remembering, like, that's who she is, and just be that. Like, I'm not me. I'm Tank. So.
And the fun thing is, what we're getting on this one is, since I got to explode it open and do what I want, I have a character named Bulldozer. I've got a character named Mouse. And so I got to take what I did with Tank and create all these characters, and it kind of reminds me of like a Sergeant Rock comic book where, you had Sergeant Rock, and then you had Bulldozer, and so I just I had a lot of fun with it. But that is the one thing. Even now that you have all these cool characters all around you, to each their own, they have their own style and coolness.
Yeah.
We have to stop all the time, and we go, wait, there is no way Tank would just start cracking up and telling a joke like that.
Right.
That's just not her.
Right.
And we have to go back and do that because of that thing that you're talking about. Is we've established her and we care for her and we know her and we want to keep that going because we love her.
And honestly, like, I think part of the challenge for me in keeping in that sometimes during shooting this time is, I mean, not putting anything down, I don't think it took anything away from the movie, but Tank didn't talk a whole lot in the first movie. She didn't say a whole lot.
No,
so in this,
nor did Mad Max. But
right,
anyway,
well, that's what I'm saying. Like, it doesn't matter. I'm not saying that means anything other than in this series, I speak more. And so it's been learning how to go, okay,
yes,
when I do speak, even if it's not a moment that's necessarily intense, like, you know, when Tank spoke in the first movie, it was in moments of like, you don't got time to fuck around, you're
Right.
say your shit and get out of there.
Yeah.
So in this movie, you know, oh, sorry, language, sorry.
That's okay. I'm not going to
says
censor you, so but keep going.
Okay. In this movie, she says not a whole lot more, but she says a bit more, and so it was just learning how she would speak in
Finding
maybe
that tone.
a normal situation also.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
is it? I imagine she has to go through. I mean, Crawl or Die originally was pretty succinct in what it.
Basic.
Yeah, what was trying to be accomplished there, and you know, this, I imagine you have to kind of bring her into a bigger world and give her more of an emotional journey and you know, to be able to react to the different situations that
Sure.
she finds
Yeah.
herself in, and make her a more expand more of what a character's like that, what her life would be after those events.
Right.
And I'm sure she's also affected by you know, I'm not going to
Absolutely.
spoil anything, but you know, I'm sure she's
It's all of that, but then and also, like you said, keeping it authentic to what people know her as from the first movie and figuring that out.
And giving her a journey. I mean, you know, look, we all know the hooks when you're doing a project. You know, we need to see where she is and how she overcomes it or not overcomes it, and where she grows or stuns. You
Yeah.
know, and that's been fun. We've been having a blast with that.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds fantastic. I think let's see, where are we at? I think we're just about at a point where we want to wrap up, but I do want to carry you guys over to my after show,
Sure.
which is available for my Patreon supporters. And if you are listening to this on YouTube, you should also know that my Patreon supporters got to hear this first. And they also get to hear the after show exclusively. That doesn't get released for like 2 years after I record them. So,
Cool.
we are going to carry the conversation with some Crawl or Die spoilers with Nicole in Oklahoma, and so I hope you will join us there. But for anybody listening who's not a Patreon supporter, do you guys have any final words for the listening audience?
I'll go first and then let Nikki back it up. You brought up Bill Oberst, and I would say that he and we have followed him for a long time. I think people like Rodriguez, I could go on and on. I think what they have been doing and how they sustain is exactly the model, you know, that we took. We saw how those people. We saw how I'll take Bill for a perfect example. I mean, the reason he's carved out a career, he's got the talent, but he works his ass off all the time, interacting, thinking, making connections, and I go, that's the key to this. Unless, and I know a couple filmmakers right now who literally don't care if anybody sees it; they just want to make it. And if that's what makes them happy, that's great. But if you want an audience and you want to get out there and you want to try to carve out some sort of career, you got to put in that work. And it's not about, actually, for me, I'll use me as an example. This would go into anything. It's not even about the movie at times. It's more about the interaction. And then your fans will go along on that journey and support it. And, you know, and then you got to back it up and show them something good. So that'd be my final thing.
I'll follow that up with confirming that, and by doing a little shameless self-promotion.
Oh, and we will leave
guys-
links to your social media and projects in the description as well. So don't.
That'd be great. Because right now, what we really need most is just people to go to our website and sign up for our mailing list. That helps us the most because we can interact and keep everyone updated in a very efficient way. So that's all I would add to that is crawlordietrilogy.com and sign up for the mailing list so we can keep in touch with you guys.
That's my little social media, little tank right there. She
Can't
just
help
keeps
it.
forging
Sorry.
ahead. No, it's good. It's good. It's one of the things that I think saves us at times is I'll be I'll get overwhelmed with all the social media, and then she's just over there like a tank, just moving forward, just doing what needs to be done. So
I just like
yes.
that it's crawlordietrilogy.com. Trilogy being a key word, which I'll ask you a little bit more about that in the after show again. And I also want to talk about, this is another teaser for the audience to go over to the Patreon. You also mentioned the fact that you create a different production company name for every film you make. So we're going to talk about that in the after show. So to my listeners on YouTube, thanks very much for tuning in. Thank you to my Patreon supporters. Don't forget to like this video, share it, subscribe, and hit the bell for notifications so you get all of these interviews and my insights on the evolving content creation industry. So Oklahoma, Nicole, thank you very much.
Hey, man, appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it.